Happening today, the former New Haven police chief, who's accused of stealing tens of thousands of dollars from the department, will be back in court, and this time he could be facing even more charges. The reporter Anna Stansfield live outside the courthouse with the very latest. Anna.
Okay, good morning. Since Karl Jacobson's last court appearance here about a month ago, we know officials have still been analyzing different bank records, which is why we're expecting that there could be potential that he'll face even more charges here this morning, as he once again will be in front of a judge. Right now, Jacobson is out on bond. He's facing charges of larceny and is accused of stealing more than $85,000 from the city to feed a gambling addiction. That money coming from an array of different programs in the city, including the Confidential Informant Fund and the Police Activity League, which funds programs for city kids. According to the warrant, Jacobson admitted that he has a gambling problem to investigators, who then discovered that he had wagered $4.5 million between two online betting apps, losing more than $200,000. While Jacobson is out on a $150,000 bond, one big condition is that he doesn't place any wagers and stays out of the casinos. Now, he's expected to appear here in court at 9:30 this morning. We will have a crew inside that courtroom bringing you the latest updates as soon as we get them, especially as it relates to whether or not we see Jacobson facing any more charges here this morning. For now, though, I'm your reporter live in New Haven, Anna Stansfield, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.
All right, Anna, thank you.